it at this kind of regional approach, it will allow us to do so much things. Because now we're not just looking at one small island, but we're looking at possibly bringing together islands. In addition to which, the Centre is actually looking at a regional cluster initiative with Compete Caribbean. And even before now, the Centre has been building technical capacity within the region. In fact, I have trained at least 2 or 3 people out of St Vincent at Centre course in cluster mapping, in global value chain analysis. So already we have been building the capacity. So I already have people here in St Vincent who understand the thing, who I will use in the training to further build capacity. It's always important to start from where needs have been identified. So the government, through whatever process has been used, have identified these 3 areas. So that's the 3 areas of focus: livestock, fruit and veg, and banana. And the focus in livestock is mostly on poultry, and in the case of banana, it's on fair trade banana. But the Centre is bringing robust, objective analysis to the table. So even as those have been identified, the first thing we want to do is to start with a training program where we train people in something called cluster mapping. Because the first port of call, in my view, is to have an understanding of what the landscape looks like. How many farmers? What are they producing? When are they producing? Which parts of the year that you have production is at its peak? Which parts you have it at a slump? How much people are employed on a farm? What's the size of the farm? What's the aging structure in a real way? We know we have some statistics, but let's verify the statistics in the first instance. Because once we get that kind of what we call primary data, it allows us to be able to understand what is the comparative advantage, as economists use that term, but what really are the things that we have that we, on the basis of which we could build. Are we really realistic when we talk about some of these issues? And then meeting with stakeholders, all of these stakeholders, listening to them, getting their input into it, because that would be very important to feed in terms of how we build. And from that process, identify what are the potential winners out of those areas that we need to focus on. You see, it's a stratified kind of outcome that we could have. We could identify those areas, for example, where we realize that there is room for growth, but that growth is really simply to satisfy a domestic market, to generate employment in your domestic market, to save foreign exchange. And you really do not have the potential to be competitive beyond that, because you cannot achieve the economies of scale, you cannot achieve the kind of competitive prices that is required in order to move beyond that. Then there could be the second segment, where we realize there's potential now in some areas where the regional market is the way to go, because we've identified that in Trinidad and Tobago for X crop, we import X amount, and we're importing from the United States. Here is a potential market. So the next stage is, what do we need to do in order to be able to break into that market and to capture and keep that market, being realistic to the need to be competitive. So that's at the regional level. There might be some things that will lend themselves naturally to that. And then beyond that, there might be some things with which we may not even consider the regional market, but we may be producing or building a sector simply to target the international market. And already, in meeting with farmers, they have identified some potential areas there. The bottom line to all of this is there's no quick fix to development. Of course, governments have their challenges, and we must be sensitive to those challenges. Every 5 years there's an election, and therefore they need their quick wins. And we must be able, as technocrats, to be able to provide short-term fixes for short-term problems. But you cannot find a short-term solution to a long-term problem. This is a long-term problem. And therefore, and I feel, having met with the Honorable Prime Minister, with the Minister, I feel that they have that commitment to both, really, which they must have, but importantly, that they have the commitment to that long-term development of the sector. The issue now is how do we create the strategies, and how do we stay committed to those strategies? How do we resource those strategies in order to do that? The Centre, therefore, is not going to stop at the point where we have the strategy. The Centre wants to be involved in the implementation. We want to be monitoring the people we've trained on the ground who continue to work with the sector to ensure that the timelines we say by which we do things, that they are done. We want to work with the stakeholders to ensure that the accountabilities are met. If the if government says it's going to change certain policies, by when, let us be proactive in pushing them and reminding them, even before the deadlines are here. Look, you committed to doing this. We need it done, because if you do not do X, we cannot move forward. So we need to do that. We need to take ownership of our business in the region. And the Caribbean Center for Competitiveness is saying that's what we want to do. We want to hold hands with all of the stakeholders, take responsibility for our own development, and push the agenda forward. So one of the things I've been doing is asking all the stakeholders, give us all the information that's available. Give us all the studies that you have. Let us use our skills to put all of it so we have a good picture where we are. We don't want to be doing a study that has been done already to come up with the same recommendations. So let us start with just kind of putting on a spreadsheet, finding all the studies, getting all the recommendations, and kind of pulling out the common ones and seeing what makes sense there and identifying the gaps. There's no magic answer to pull out of the air. The answer comes from analysis, from understanding what they're producing, understanding potentially, given what they're producing, where is their market for it, what are the standards that the market require, and feeding that information back to them. And it's not just feeding the information, because giving them the information is one thing, but when you give them the information, they may simply not have the resources that may be required to up the technology that is required. Then you have to link them into maybe some development program that will provide them with the support in order to make that happen. There's a time that is involved, could be involved in making that happen. All these things you have to be realistic to. There are no quick fixes. No quick fixes. And the faster we in the region get to understanding that, the better we'll put ourselves on the road to actually making development happen. Because you know what? We so focus on looking for the quick fixes, we don't understand the time keeps going. And time keeps going, we're still looking for the quick fixes, time when we could have put in place the long-term strategy. So we need to start putting it in now.